Hello again, and welcome back to TerraFirmaCraft. In today's episode, we're going to go through the process of mining. So we're first going to make our tools to begin mining, and then we're going to spend some time mining copper. I'll walk you through all of the processes that I use to mine as safely as possible. Last time, we managed to get ourselves some copper through panning, but we're going to move away from panning because it is quite time consuming and instead move to mining it. But before we do that, I would like to get us some silk, purely because we can make a bed. That's worth doing, number one, because we are quite far away from spawn, and also because mining is quite dangerous in this mod pack. There are steps you can take in order to minimise the risk, but it is risky nonetheless. Now, in order for us to get silk, we're going to need to get silkworms. And to do that, we need shears and a crook. For a crook, you simply need plant string or any kind of silk or wool or anything like that for string, and 3 sticks, and you can make yourself a wooden crook. For some shears, you're going to need a couple of these, so we'll make a couple more, and some flint scrap. I believe it looks something like that, and we now have some flint shears. Now, what we are going to do is take these shears and gather ourselves some leaves. As far as I know, if you just crook leaves that naturally spawn, it doesn't seem to give you silkworms. I don't know if that's kind of a placebo, but I feel like I've never gotten a silkworm from doing it. However, if you collect some and then go ahead and place them and re-cook them, it does actually seem to give you them more consistently. Again, I'm not sure if that's a placebo or whether or not that is actually the case. So I'll grab a few of these. Now, it does also appear to be somewhat luck based, so this could take a while, or we could get it almost in our first few. So after we place them down, we're simply just going to crook them. You will get some sticks. Silkworm nearly instantly. Perfect. We might as well do this whole row, and then there you go, second silkworm, and then we'll go and get some more leaves. So we managed to grab ourselves 3 silkworms. Now, the nice thing about silkworms is, as for how they work, which you'll see in a second, you can actually just make more of them, which is exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a few more leaves. Nothing crazy, you don't need too many. I mean, really, we only need 3 to start with. And we'll set ourselves up a very small silk farm. I just wanted to get this done and out of the way, so that when we go ahead and go copper mining, we can kind of leave this to populate in the background, which is exactly what we want. There you go. So we now have a whole load of leaves. So, I don't know. We'll clear a little bit of space, why not? Now, one of the other reasons to gather silk is because bees are quite important, and you need silk, or string of any kind really, but I believe it's mostly silk, to make beehives. That allows you to get beeswax, which is quite crucial for some structures. I think the greenhouse relies on it, or at least the tier 1 greenhouse. Perfect, so we will just go ahead and place down some leaves. Nothing crazy for now. We'll share that. Pick it back up. And we will place down our 3 silkworms. Now, I do not believe these spread in placed leaves. If you were to place these in a tree, they would fill up that progress bar you see at the top and then spread to adjacent leaves. In placed leaves, they don't seem to do that, which does have its ups and downs. In the last server that I played HardRock in, myself and my friends did decide that we would kind of just put it in a tree. We then had to spend a solid 14 hours clearing a whole forest out of those silkworms, which was not the most entertaining thing in the world. So you can see that progress bar will progress all the way up to 100%. It is then infested. We can then take our crook and pick up those leaves again. It will destroy the leaves, I believe, but you will then get silk plus guaranteed 1 silkworm, but most of the time from my experience you do seem to get more than 1, so you can kind of keep growing your silk farm. So now that we have done that, we need to work on getting the tools to go copper mining. Now, I did have a little run around just in the immediate area to see what was around. And I did find, I believe, some copper there. Bismuth. So yeah, it seems our closest copper is up to the left, just there, to our west. Yeah. Now, we need something called a prospector's pick, or any of the prospector's tool, but the prospector's pick is the cheapest as far as I know, which would be, that's a mineral prospector. Another one? I believe that. No, it's that one. Copper prospector's pick. This is what we need. Fortunately, I do not believe there is a stone version though, so we are going to need to cast it. Which of course means we need to make a mould. Now I don't believe I did make a mould. No, I only made some ingot moulds last time. So I'll go ahead and grab my clay that is slowly running out. And, we have a look at the recipe for this. 3 up, across. Cool. See if I can remember that. I can. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and throw that in there. Don't really have the clay spare to do anything else currently. And then if we take straw, which I think I threw in here out of laziness. Got our 8 straw in there, followed by 8 logs. And there you go. So what we effectively need to do is make that prospector's pick, because that will kind of scan an area around where we right click and kind of tell us if there's a deposit there. Because as far as we can tell, and how I found these marks, is there is copper pieces on the surface. Interesting. Well, I mean, I guess we have turtle meat now. There's some on the surface. However, that doesn't exactly tell us where it is underground. Now, we could, of course, spend a long time tunneling out a load of space, but that would take an awful lot of time. So this pick allows us to kind of scan an area around. Now, when I type this in, you may notice there are different kinds. These have different kind of radiuses that they scan. The one that I find most useful is the drill. But as you can see, that is 400 millibuckets of copper, which is quite a lot, versus the 100 of the prospector's pick. I believe it's in a 25 by 12 radius or something like that. It is in the book. I should probably check, but I won't. So we need 100 millibuckets more copper, because I don't think we quite have that. We have 25 there. I think that's unfortunately all we have. So I'm going to go ahead and go pan for some more copper while that fire works its way through. So I've gathered a little bit more copper, just so we have enough to fill this Pro-Pick mould with the copper we already had. So what I'm going to do is do what I should have done last time and use the pick kiln and the vessel. So fill it with our copper and then pick kiln again. I did mention before that you are going to be relying on this pick kiln rather a lot at the start. I need another fire starter, because until we have a crucible and things, that forge can be rather time consuming to use. So preferably not set our torch on fire. That would be most ideal. If we go ahead and pick kiln this, we are just going to have to be relatively quick, so there's not really a lot else we can do in that time, because when that is over, the temperature is at the height it needs to be, and then we'll need to very quickly pour it into this mold. So we can't really use this time to do other things. I will just have to hang around. But what we can do is we can now see that our infested leaves are fully infested. That progress bar at the top is no longer there. So if we go ahead and grab our crook again and mine these, you can see that we got 2 string and our silkworm back. Sometimes you will get more silkworms, sometimes you won't. Apparently you can sometimes get no silkworms, which is a little bit frustrating, but we do now have a little bit of string. Now for the time being, I don't believe that's going to be anywhere near enough for a bed, because I believe we need silk cloth, We need a loom and all of that good stuff. So we're going to need 24. We're going to need a fair amount. I think what I might do, seeing as we have 6 minutes left, is just see if I can grab myself a few more leaves to hopefully get some more silkworms. In fact, we don't need to necessarily crook or shear anymore. We can just crook the few we have and hope we get another silkworm like that. And we might as well just throw you on there. So we're going to just spend a little bit of time just getting ourselves a few silkworms. Because perhaps I just got unlucky there. A couple more. Because as you can see, we do need quite a lot of this. For something as simple as a bed. Well, that will hopefully see us through a little bit more. But yeah, it's going to take quite a while. I suppose, how long have we got? 5 minutes. Let's have a look at making a loom. I don't know if I remember how to do that. Just lumber and a stick. This we can do. And we have a loom. Wonderful. So our pit kiln finished. I took the vessel with the copper, filled our mould with it. I'm just going to pop that out and make ourselves a prospector's pick, which is just what we need. Now there are a couple more things we need to do in order to prepare to go mining. The two things that we're probably going to need are going to be supports to stop cave-ins. It's the way that you can minimize that risk. And also we're going to need some ladders. So we do have a fair few sticks. So if I go ahead and make some ladders, which just like so, we might as well make a lot, because why not? Well, I say a lot, it's not exactly a lot. Interesting that's not really working. Oh well. Hopefully that will be enough. And then we're going to need some supports. Now I was making supports earlier when we were going through the process of making lumber. So it is exactly the same as before. You simply put your logs on the chopping block and then right click 3 times with an axe and you end up with some supports. You're going to need quite a few of these. So we'll go ahead and just do that. We may also want to try and make some kind of block that is not affected by gravity, because things like cobblestone are, which can of course become a little bit of an issue when you put your supports on something that is affected by gravity. So we'll probably go with something like planks or half slabs or something like that. Just need to make another axe quickly. Need myself one of those sticks again. Make ourselves a new axe. Now I did say that we'd make a bed before we go, but seeing as how long getting that amount of string is likely going to take, we may hold off on that. But we will see. We might just have to be extremely careful when we are mining and just hope for the best when it comes to cave-ins. Now, of course, we don't necessarily need a huge amount of copper at this stage. We just really need enough for some more tools. But if we can get ourselves a fair few supports, that would be ideal. Because you're always going to need them, so why not grab a load? How is this doing? Halfway done. In fact, I would imagine you can put these in your offhand, and yeah, that would speed things up drastically. probably just going to go until this axe is broken, which it just has. That is, of course, not what I wanted to do. And I've now done a lovely job of smashing my hand. Make ourselves another axe. This will be one of the joys of getting into copper tools. We're just going to have a little bit more durability to play with, which will be greatly appreciated, because constantly having to make stone tools is not the most enjoyable thing. There we go. So we have got a grand total of 4 string so far, which isn't a huge amount, and we are going to need, what, 24 times 3, so 72 to actually make ourselves a bed, which is going to be quite a way away. So I think what we will do is we'll grab ourselves some food and water, and we'll head over towards one of those copper deposits. So we'll eat this, because it is about to rot. And I think we will take some garlic with us, as well as a water jug, which we will drink and fill up. So I do have a barrel now with boiled water in it. I did spend just a little bit of time boiling water in between episodes, and we are going to head over this direction. I suppose if we come to our waypoint manager, we can turn these on so I can actually see where I'm going a little bit more easily. Now you may notice that it's relatively safe to move around at night. In HardRock there are no mobs that spawn on the surface like creepers or zombies or skeletons or anything like that can do damage. The only things you really have to pay attention for are wolves, because if they are hungry they will eat you, and they are also nocturnal, so they tend to do most of their moving around at night. There are no piranhas here, so we'll take this opportunity to the river. Now, when it comes to prospecting with this pick, there is a little bit of luck involved, because you can find surface signs of deposits, but they can be just outside of your prospector's pick's reach. So you'll see what I mean in just a moment. But we will we'll see some copper on the surface soon. I believe this is in the form of malachite, which does behave exactly like copper. You can smelt it down with other kinds of copper and it will still just become copper. So there's no need to worry about that aspect. But just over here, we should see some malachite. And there we go. We have ourselves some malachite. So I have a ping here and one just slightly north. And generally speaking, you want to take your prospector's pick and try and find where the surface pieces are most concentrated. Then just begin right clicking on the floor and hopefully we will find a trace. There is a little bit of luck involved. I will spend the time just picking these up. It is free copper with no work involved. And as long as you have the ping, you're never going to lose it. If I can't find a trace, I will head over to this deposit. This one may be a little bit more awkward. Let's have a look. Found nothing. Nothing at all. We may have to take some slightly different measures if we seem to consistently find nothing. Ah, traces. There you go. Now there is a cave here, which is rather unfortunate because we are going to begin finding those things I said earlier you don't tend to see on the surface. So if we can just eliminate this creeper. There you go. Free gunpowder. Oh, tremendous. He's got a friend. perhaps should have made a javelin. But that is no mind. Because these guys are going to make this incredibly difficult. Are we quite done? That seems like it gets worse. So we have a small, large sample of malachite. So in theory, it's rather frustrating. In theory, our copper should be somewhere around here. Now, as I mentioned, there are different tools that behave in slightly different ways. This, as far as I know, makes kind of a square shape in front of you. So it should at least be around here. Now, what I like to do is just go ahead, get out my hand, and dig down. We're just going to have to hope and pray that nothing decides to try and attack us while we do this. Now, I like to go in a 3x3 straight down, which is why I brought the ladders. But you can, of course, go in any which way you prefer. So I did actually end up having to go back and get more ladders, and also I gave up on the other 3x3 I was digging purely because I was being attacked too much. So I just moved it just around here. I was using the prospector's pick, and I picked up still the same trace. So I decided I'm just going to dig down here and change it up. But as you can see, we have actually found ourselves some malachite. So the general process for this that I like to follow, and it was given to me by a friend, is that when you first see that vein, stop, do not go any deeper. And that is purely because of how the supports and cave-ins work. From here, you're going to want to dig out a 3x3 in one of the walls, doesn't really matter which one, and then we're going to begin using our supports. You will see that sometimes you get effects like that. That just means that it is declaring that it is unsupported. I did forget to pick up some of those blocks that are not affected by gravity, so this is going to be a little bit riskier. And then we're going to place our supports in an archway, like so. Now, as for how these supports work, it adds supports to one block above it, 4 blocks out in each direction from the center, if I am correct. So what that means is that if we were to dig 4 blocks this way, it should still be supported, and unless there's any kind of other caves around, it should almost guarantee no cave-in. So we're going to proceed with that. We're going to go ahead and just dig out a few blocks this way. Now, the reason we're doing this in this particular way is because it's much easier with the way supports work to dig down than it is to dig up. So if we start from the top of a deposit and work our way down, we can almost guarantee us getting all of the copper. It is more time consuming, but in my opinion, it is worth it. Now again, we don't need necessarily much copper, and by the looks of it, we have only just hit the top of the deposit. So in this direction, we're going to stop here, and we will instead pick a different direction. I will just dig out just enough to add our next layer of supports. Now I like to go 3 blocks and then do a support on the 4th, just because with that 4th block range, if we were to try and dig out a 5th, there's no guarantee we could get away with that. So as soon as we have done these three would still be safe, as with the next one. The one after that would not be. We will still put our supports in an area that is safe, but it just extends that range. That may complicate things, however, but we'll see. This is just so we can effectively quarry down, as opposed to kind of trying to spaghetti our way, if you will, rather deposit, because that can just make things more difficult when it comes to preventing cave-ins. So we're just going to fill that in, like so, and put ourselves another support. So this bit here is now completely safe. Now it does look like the copper is going to be going in that direction, so we are going to follow it in that direction. I think we may unfortunately have to remove this ladder temporarily, and we're just going to repeat the process we just did. There goes our shovel, which is most unfortunate. But we have also secured ourselves our first piece of copper. You may notice that it says rich malachite. Whenever you are mining ore, there are 3 tiers. You have poor, normal, and rich. That determines, as you can see, when you crush it with a hammer, which is the first step, how much of the rocky chunks you get of that particular ore. So a rich one turns into 7. A normal one, I believe, turns into 5, and a poor one turns into 3. It is kind of random as far as I know in terms of the kind of amount of each of them you get in the ore. I do believe that the rock type the ore is found in can determine. So that will be told to you in the book, I believe. Some rock types, if you find an ore type in them, will have more rich versus normal and poor. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You're going to want to pick them all up anyway. So now we have our stone shovel, we can resume with this mining. We are again going to remove this ladder. We'll put that back in shortly. And we will make just enough room for our next set of supports. So as I mentioned, I do like to do it in a kind of quarry format. It just makes getting all of the ore a little bit easier, and as far as I've seen it, is the safest. The only way that ever seems to change is if there are caves around that kind of add another factor as for what can go wrong. But we can now safely remove this corner piece, which you can walk through. The reason I do that is because I'm going to, it's not going to like it out, well maybe it will. I'm going to put my ladder back in for now so we can actually get out, and we'll just have to work around this bit. But we will continue in that 3x3 tunnel as we did over there and just keep adding supports. So as you can see, I have kind of just extended these hallways, if you will, out just a little bit. And now what I like to do is effectively link these hallways. And how I do that is simply by kind of repeating the process and extending the hallways in a different direction. You'll see in just a moment. So I would dig this out in the same 3x3 pattern and repeat the supports. The plan is to try and make a kind of square, if you will, and then just dig straight down. Again, that may make things a little bit difficult. Now, there is probably a way you can do this to save supports. I've had to run back and make some more in between. But in my opinion, it's much better to mine safely, because once a cave-in has happened, kind of difficult to recover from it in my experience. You oftentimes end up digging up blocks to try and put your supports back in, which causes more cave-ins, because as soon as you have those voids of blocks in your mine, so you'll have spaces above where your supports need to go, they just start to behave a little bit more strangely. Now, I do believe there are mods you can get that will kind of display how likely a block is to cave in at the current moment and whether or not it is supported, but I prefer to play without it. But that's completely up to you. So I'm going to just extend this out so that all of these now meet and we have roughly a square shape, and then we will begin to dig down. So I need to go grab some more ladders in between. So as you can see, I have managed to fill out that kind of square shape I was after, with a few more trips in between to drop off things like gravel and whatnot and get some more supports. At this point, what we can do is begin kind of skimming off layer by layer going down. So we will begin doing that. As I mentioned before, there are faster ways to do this, but in my opinion, it's a little bit better to go slower and do it safely. Because losing, well, it's not really losing, but making mining more difficult than it needs to be is not worth it in my opinion. You're much better taking your time. So I am going to proceed with taking this mine down layer by layer, and I'll see you in the next episode when we have some copper for me to process.